And we are rolling. Welcome, everybody, or anyone that's here. I have not had this beautiful lady on my show since there was a lot of drama, and I'm super happy to have you back. And I know that I told people that I wasn't going to be having survivors on, and when I said that, what I meant was I wouldn't be interviewing new survivors, and that I wouldn't be discussing people's traumatic um stories. I wasn't going to continue to give the platform to people because I ran into a lot of drama, which is very normal for people who've been through a lot of trauma. And as the people are sorting out their trauma, they're coming up against things that are activating them. And so then next thing you know, you've got people mad in the comments, and then somebody's accusing this person of that, and this person's fighting, and it just got to be crazy. On top of that, then I discovered there were some ministries that weren't being completely honest, and so I removed myself from that. But overall, it is a very important subject. And I think that that's why I kept with like the Gina Phillips and the Amanda Bays and Tarina, trying to get help, because it is so complex. And even someone like me, who hasn't had anywhere near the level of trauma that somebody like Madison has been through in their life, I'm still working through my stuff. My dad gets cancer, and I find myself triggered by different things that he does. And it is a job. It is a full-time job. And so with that in mind, I want anyone that's here, because I know there'll be people here that are not nice and don't have nice things to say, and don't want to help people heal, but they actually want to say, hey, here's Madison when she did this, and hey, look at this person that did a fraud video or whatever. I'm telling you, I've seen it all, and I do not care. What I care about is that somebody's on a journey of healing. And so I am very proud of you, Madison, in that I have watched you since probably, I'm thinking we met around the end of 2020, beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
And the way that you used to handle yourself, the way that you used to react, you've done so much work. And that's even after you've done a ton of work to even be able to go public. So I want to first of all acknowledge how incredible you have done, at least that I have personally witnessed. And welcome back.
Thank you. And should I just say it? I mean, I told you
Well,
so.
I think you should go ahead and say it right now. Let's just go ahead and get it over with.
I told you so, everybody. I told you. I mean, which part should I say I told you so? Because there's like a lot. So maybe we'll get into that.
Well, it's funny too, because I told her, I was like, I've already got a bunch of trolls. You've already got a bunch of trolls. We should maybe just start it, say, I told you so, and then just cut the show off.
Yeah, that would be funny. It would just cut it. I mean, you should just, actually, guys, I got to go. So I told you so. Bye. I got to go.
The reason I think it's especially important is I do feel like it's been an unbelievable year of exposure. And I have been absolutely in shock at how much the church is being exposed first. And that's biblical. Like it kind of blew my mind. And that was your thing. You used to call it Pastorgate. And so you have a list. And I don't know, have you ever tallied up the list of people that or pastors or people involved in ministry who were a part of doing some nasty things? Let's just call it nasty things.
Sure. I mean, do I have a list? Yeah, I have a list. And I, put it out there. People always ask me, can you just send me the list? And I'm like, it's not really that easy because I've exposed it and then it's like out there. So, to just go and put all the list out there, I've done that multiple times on Telegram and different, social media sites. It's why I get kicked off of all of the social media sites. But like, even the things that are happening now, I mean, people are seeing it and they're like, well, you were such a liar, you're horrible, there's no way. It's like they put these men on these pedestals, and it's like, okay, just like all of those videos you were talking about, it's like they have no proof of anything other than, okay, so they have that I got arrested and all of that. Like, fine, do you want me? I mean, I'm happy to put my mug shots out there too. I have a rap sheet, like I wrote about it, So, it's like that doesn't make someone any less credible. I mean, there's redemption for everybody, and the problem is with these pastors is people are like, oh, well, even there's redemption for them. There's only redemption for them if they admit to what they have done and then confess it to the world. I mean, but they're not doing that. Even the ones that have died, people are like, oh, maybe they went to heaven. I don't, and that's probably going to be a sore topic, but I don't necessarily believe that, that they just died and then went to heaven because they asked for forgiveness. I don't think so. You went and did these nasty things, right, for decades, and then you're just going to die and go to I don't believe God works that way, especially when it comes to kids and children. It says better a noose around the neck. Can I say that? The
Yes.
Bible verse.
Be careful. Be careful.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
trying to be extra careful, and this won't be monetized. There won't be commercials on it. I think it's too important. And
Yeah.
I also know that I could lose on this end having you, but I want people to be brave, and so I have to be brave. I want people to put things on the line, so I have to put something on the line. And that's kind of where I wanted to start, was just let's all try to be better. Like every single person inside of them, there is a spectrum of a history that is both good and bad, a present that is both good and bad, and a future that could be both good or bad. And so, we have so much going against us. We've got lasers going in directions, weather going this way.
Yeah.
We've got AI going that way. There's so many different things that are coming at us that I believe it's more important than ever to really discern like who really is trying their best, whether you go off on somebody or not. Are you trying your best? And do I see that? And with you, I do see that. And I would say, I was thinking about this earlier, like anyone that's ever watched sports, there's always the person that starts the trouble, in the fray, and then there's the one that retaliates. And the one that retaliates is always the one that gets caught by the ref. They're like, don't be the second person. And you remind me of that little kid, scrappy and not going to let anybody mess with you. And you're not going to go tell the ref. You're just going to take care of it yourself. And I have a lot of compassion for every single person's different style of healing. And just have watched you like literally go from yelling at people, cussing people out, to now just blocking them. And I feel bad. And I've watched a lot of videos of Jaguar Wright. Do you know who that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I actually just watched some of her stuff. I really like her.
yeah, she reminds
Yeah.
me of you. You guys, of course, are totally different personalities, but just the way she's refusing to let go, no matter what faces her. She gets on to Piers Morgan, and then she loses it. And that's kind of the way your little journey has been, up and down and up and down. And so, yes, you have a list, and this is what I've been the most impressed with, is of all the stories I've heard, yours and the people you specifically called out doing these horrible things, we'll just call them horrible things. Um, these pastors are stepping down. They're actually getting caught. They're confessing. I mean, in Dallas alone, we have to have something like 6 large
Yeah.
churches recently have pastors either step down, confess their sins, be arrested. And it's insane. And it involves children. And I'm pretty sure y'all know what I mean by that. And so
Well,
thank you
that's
for hanging in there and trying to warn people. And it's crazy because the very place we should be safe is the place that they've infiltrated.
well, that's the whole thing. Is I think there's like a couple like aspects to like what you're saying here. One is, okay, let's go back to when I first started speaking out. listen, I am human, right? You can only take so much hate where then it does get to you to where you pop off. And so there's been times where, listen, I've like, this happened recently because I was trolled so much. I was just like, fuck off. Like, it was just leave me alone. I am a human, and it's hard for me because they don't realize, like, yes, I am healed, right? And I come on these podcasts and I do these things, but we also have, as humans, just humanity in general, have triggers of things that we've gone through. And so people say, oh, well, she's, on here talking and everything else. So let me be like hateful, yucky. Let me like go and like, let's silence her however we can, right? And then you go over here where it's like, you're coming at me, right? Prove it, prove it, prove it. Show me the receipt, show me the receipt. But not once have they ever gone to these pastors. Not, I don't think one of them have ever come to me and said, I went to this pastor and they're denying what you're saying. No one has gone, like the trolls that I get, they don't go to the pastors and say, hey, this is being said about you. Can you like talk about it, like account for it? Not, people just don't do that. It's like they put these people on pedestals and they're making millions and billions of dollars, and people don't go and ask them. So you're over here with like a survivor, right? And then you also a survivor who's been trained in combat, who's been trained to look at what handlers look like, to be able, I've also done extensive therapy to also know what that looks like, where people are like, you don't know what you're talking about in certain situations and things like that. And it's like, okay, well, what makes you an expert? Because if you're an expert in it, show me and I'll have a conversation. But if you're coming to troll and everything else, then where is your motive of trolling someone like me and putting this pastor? Why? Because we've been so programmed to say, touch not thou anointed. Well, what makes them anointed? Because I'm sorry, there have been people that I've talked to, like today I went to the grocery store and there was a lady and we were just talking and I'm like, man, it was just a normal conversation. My kid was wearing a shirt that says there's only two, you know what, boy and girl, right? And so we were talking about it. I'm like, man, this woman, she doesn't even know she's anointed. I just feel her anointing. And we were having a normal conversation. So what makes these pastors so what we can't go and question them when I'm not the only person that's come forward with it? I just think I'm the loudest and I don't go anywhere. And I just, like, I think that that's where people are like disengaging the two, of the trauma and things that are going on. And then how are they okay going? Like, you now know that this might be a possibility. Okay. Maybe you don't know for sure. So you're going every Sunday and worshiping while these nasty things are happening, when you're lifting, you're participating in a seance is what you're doing. And it's evil. It's disgusting. And it is nasty is the perfect word for it, really, because it's like, you're going to come troll me, right, on the true Sabbath, Saturday. And then on Sunday, you're going to go worship these pastors that are worth all this money. And there's some really horrific things going on. I mean, I think I hope you don't get mad at me for saying this, but you had went into one of these churches and you were like, this is crazy, these tunnels and different things. I'm like, and I think you were going to a funeral, right? So it's like, people, these things are out there. You're just not looking, or you're refusing to look because you want your eyes to be closed of what's really going on in this world,
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's just call Pastor Gate, let's give it an even number, since, there is no official list. Let's say there's 100 that was originally on the list. I can easily say that 20 of those not only have either gone away, stepped down, gotten sick, someone in their family got sick, they had to step down, like all these crazy stuff. But you're also looking at people who they are fighting. They know they're guilty, and they're out there, prophesying over something and totally distracting people into like a new direction. Like, I recently saw one when they were talking about Justin Bieber being the voice that's going to bring everyone together, and I'm just like, I think Justin Bieber needs some time to heal. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I think so too. I mean, it's like the new, how do I say this? The new D United States, like state, D state, like that's what's rising up, and it's like people are just letting it happen. Like with these prophets, they're not, that's, people always are like, you don't know how to spell, because I always say Profit. I'm like, yes, I do know how to spell. I just am saying this is what they are. And then with Justin Bieber, like, here's the thing, a lot of them were kids, and when you have trauma, like that trauma, you, if you don't get help, then you stay at that age of where that trauma happened. And how old was he when he was doing, when this trauma started? He was like 13, 14. He was like, that's a baby. Like,
The
I'm sorry,
alleged
you're
trauma, the alleged
alleged,
trauma.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
and
and
I'm just being very careful because
sure,
I think that one of the things that messes up this community as a community, and trust me, they should all be loving and supporting each other far more than they're criticizing, but it's very
yeah,
hard to do when you're triggered. And so, if anyone is watching this and you get triggered, I would encourage you not to write a mean comment or something about Madison that I haven't seen yet. I'm telling you right now, I will get rid of it. But let's talk about what you have recently seen, because we've seen Robert Morris step down. We've seen TD Jakes pass his thing over to his daughter. We've seen Tony Evans step down. A lot of these guys aren't saying why, you know.
Franklin Graham
And then
stepped
there
down.
was this pastor in Argyle. There's one in Frisco. There's one in Richardson. These are big churches. Out of the ones I just named, were you familiar with those? Were those ones that you knew might have problems in the future?
Yes, and people should realize too, I run a task force, right? We've become the hunters of the ones that used to hunt us. And Texas is a hub. I mean, I know a lot of states, I know a lot of states are, because people are going to say my state is, my state is. Listen, we understand and we know that. We know that this is an epidemic here in this country, and we understand that. And these mega church pastors and the 501c3 churches is where a lot of the money goes through, and that's where people are like, I think they don't understand that. Like, people are like, say, oh well, my pastor is godly because he has this 501c3, and you're like, wait a minute, if you're a pastor or any person in business, right? Because Carmen, you've ran a lot of businesses, you've done charity work, you've done like a lot, right? And when have you ever gone into any company or charity or whatever and didn't read what the contract was? How is a church, a pastor, okay, this is a pastor who's supposed to be leading the sheep, right? And you don't know what a 501c3 is, that it basically says that you have ties to, you can only preach certain things. I'm trying to be careful here, but like, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
go,
There's regulations over what can be
sure.
said. Yeah.
Right. So go look at those regulations. So then people come at me and they're like, no, you're saying I'm saying yes, the 501c3 is bad. And this is because all of these like nonprofits and different things are like pushing their money through that. And guess what? It's like, listen, and I am not, this is a show for another time, but on the law, like, I don't believe in, the tax man, all that stuff. Right. Like, but on the churches, you can't, it's not regulated because there's no taxes. So they can't see what that money is going for. You can say this money is for, I don't know, building something in the church, when in reality, you're doing nasty things with people and pushing them through these tunnels and different things. And so I think that's what people don't really understand. And Texas is so big and have so many mega churches. That's why you're seeing it happen first in Texas. And I said, maybe it was on your show, Carmen, I don't remember, it was a couple of years ago, and I said, watch Texas. And then all these stupid prophets, pardon me, but I think they're stupid, started saying, oh, watch Texas, watch Texas. And I'm like, that's not what I mean. Go watch it. Like, you think something, I'm saying these churches are about to fall, and they are the biggest. So there has to be a domino, right? And it has to start somewhere, and it's starting here in Texas. Then you're going to see the domino go through across the US with the rest of these mega churches. I think what's already happening, I think it's so, like, a lot of people don't watch mainstream media, which I don't blame them. So they don't see a lot of the things that are happening until it's posted and that kind of thing. And then they'll go and search for it. And so it's like, they're not seeing it because they're not watching the mainstream media, which I don't blame them, So it's kind of like a vicious cycle of, if you want to see if your pastor is good, then if they're a 501c3, they're probably not. And even if you think they're a godly man, they lack discernment and they lack a leadership quality of not reading a contract before you start a church. I think that's just
Well, and I think
crazy.
this is a very common misconception. Oh, but there's an elder board. Well, there's an elder board, but that's like having like, a manager that you hire or fire, because really they're the people you chose and you placed. Very rarely does a 501c3 get a hostile takeover, right?
Yeah.
And the reason is they typically only have to have 3 people on the 501c3 at a minimum, and 2 of them can be from the same family. So, with a church in particular, if that person has their wife, then the wife's entire income, her entire way of living, everything will fall
Yeah.
apart if she doesn't agree with whoever is in charge at the church. So there's already, you already have majority vote there 100% of the time. And then usually the other person is a friend or whatever. And so it's always kind of interesting to me how people will be like, oh, but the money doesn't go. And what are you talking about? The 501c3 is owned by these 3 people. They're in charge of it. It's not a part of the Southern Baptist Convention. It's not the old school way. And I think a lot of people don't realize that they had become shields for people to be able to hide some of the most nasty stuff, because it's
Yeah.
the last place a really good godly person would go, especially when they see that the person that's facing front is always doing godly things. They're always praying, they're always doing these things, but they're not actually um they're not actually being genuine. And it's the biggest betrayal, because like
It's a long con.
that's a great way of putting it, because I can't imagine a worse betrayal than maybe your own father cheating on you, or you know, um, there was a woman that sent me an email, and she was talking about how she had this generational prostitution and generational, homosexuality and all of these different things in her family, and that it all comes back from her dad, who was a pastor. And she didn't tell me that until, like, the third email in. And it's just already so bad, but then to have it be placed in a place that's supposed to be sacred, it's supposed to be above reproach,
Yeah.
and then to have that happen is just absolutely horrifying. And so I would like to, kind of point out also that there there is a tipping point, and you've hit it, because you now have so many people that you named who are in trouble or in suspected trouble, pastors that are huge. Um, what does it feel like to finally get people coming back to you and saying, I am so sorry. I literally thought you were a crazy psychopath. And I'm seeing now that the man that or the church that I go to, because you've showed me, I've seen them. You've sent me the text messages. So how does that feel?
It's funny. I had told Carmen, was it a year ago, maybe a little bit more? I said to Carmen, I go, listen, these pastors are going to start falling, and God has already showed, because God shows me, right? Like when you're like close, you kind of see. And I said that He showed me that people are going to start coming to me and saying, I am so sorry. I thought you were crazy, all of this stuff. And I said, and when that happens, that means that these churches are about to fall massively. And then I can go away if I want to. This was a war. I'm in a war for the kids, right? And the children, and to protect them and protect our future. And so to me, it's kind of like bittersweet, right? Because my heart hurts for these people, because I know that they're in this weird, uncomfortable awakening part of, they really trusted these pastors and they've given money. And a lot of them have said, I've given money to them, and like they're hurting. And then the other part of me, like the warrior part, wants to just be like, F off, you didn't believe me in the beginning. But I don't want to be like that, because I
No.
do know that people are in their own different journey. And
Yeah.
so, I don't usually respond. I might like their comment or whatever, but I usually just kind of like let them kind of be, because I also know when they're in that, there's going to be a tug of war, right? Where they're like, okay, I had one that was going to Morris's church, and then he stepped down, and she was like, I thought you were crazy. And then I had to walk away from this church. And I think like someone like that, you're going to have a tug of war with these other pastors that you watch online and different things. And it might be where she hates, I'm her punching bag, right? I'm going to hate on you, not because she thinks I'm evil, but because she's like, how I trusted this person, and it's easier to shoot the messenger, right? Than it is to, unfortunately.
There's a reason it's a saying, right? Do you
Yeah.
have one of them handy? Can you show, or
Oh,
can you read? You don't have to show it. Just read
yeah.
anonymously what maybe a couple of them are, or just even one. Um,
I sent something.
I really like seeing it. And here's how I handled Madison, just so you guys know. I
She does not
I
my handler though.
I will sit in a place with somebody, and if I'm not sure, which I couldn't be, how could I know that these pastors were horrible? And when I would ask people information, I would get mixed reviews. I like that pastor, I don't like that pastor, this is the reason.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I just leave space. And what I've realized is over time, the truth does expose itself. And sometimes it does take a while. Like I'm still in shock that there's a few of them that are still open and that people are still going to these churches.
Well, my
Blows my
track
mind.
record didn't get arrested. I wrote my book in 2014, and Derek Hay of LA Direct Models got arrested in 2020. It took 6 years from, and that was just 6 years of me writing my book, not of when everything happened to me. I mean, it was 20 years later that I'm seeing these things happen, even with these churches. I mean, it's over 20 years that this stuff happened to me. Trying to find.
And I am, just so you guys know, I just banned somebody from here. I don't want to hear about ask ask questions about Jesse. Ask questions. This is not what this is about. This is about everybody coming together. And I don't owe anybody an explanation. Madison doesn't owe anybody. Just open your eyes, watch, look who the people are supporting, look who they're, you will figure it out yourself. And the fact that you feel like you have to ask Madison is a sign that inside of you, there's a question. Trust
100%.
yourself.
Well, that's what I always tell people about pastors. I'm like, if you're asking me, then you already have your answer. I don't have to tell you, because inside you, it's inside you. Our discernment or awakening, whatever you want to call, is inside us. They're like, people, the anointing is in every single one of us. And so when you're asking questions, no matter who it is, you have your answer. Even like I tell people, if you're questioning me, turn me off for 21 days and then let God show you. If I'm disrupting your peace, please delete me, because I don't want to be a cause of your harm or disrupting your peace or anything like that. You know what I mean? Let's see.
Yeah, I was so
Oh, here we
go ahead.
So, oh my God, Gateway. So this is funny because this person actually has followed me for 2 years, but didn't really believe me. And she said, Gateway Church did Christmas shoe boxes. I just want to puke. I can't believe I was so blinded. I watched you for 2 years before Morris stepped down, and that's all it took for me to leave. I trust everything you say. You are proof. I can't believe that people are asking you to prove yourself. All I can say is those who question, just sit back and follow. When my pastor stepped down, that was proof enough that she was telling the truth for years. So it's funny because you have these haters that have followed me for years. And it's like, even this woman, okay, and I don't want to talk bad about her. She's known for years. You're following me because you already knew you shouldn't be sitting in that church. Why did you waste that many years under this leadership when you could have gone and started your own fellowship with people around you that really love you, and where two or more are gathered, that's where he is. And so why did you need for me to like something to happen of what I've said for you to leave? You were already questioning it. You're not following me for 2 years and waiting for something to happen if you didn't somewhat believe what I was saying. You know
I
what
do
I
have
mean?
to give people a break, though. It has
Yes.
become very difficult. My daughter was right in 2020. She said the information age is over, and it's true. We no longer have information that we can trust.
No.
And I do think, like I said, it's okay to give space, but just be nice
Yeah.
about it. The truth and love, like Second John is like right now my favorite book. I keep repeating this over and over again, but one of the best ways you can tell, and I talked about this the last time I was on here. One of the best ways you can tell how sincere somebody is you look for the fruit of the spirit. And one
Yeah.
of the fruit is joy. Another one is self-control. Another one is just the ability to be gentle and kind. And so when you think about that, there's a lot of us that are falling short. And so until you can master all 9 aspects of that fruit, you have work to do yourself. And why not just allow other people to get there too?
Yeah.
Um, I have a question for you on, like you were saying, being pushed through tunnels. So we'll call it that. That'll be the word we'll use.
Okay.
um, of the, let's say there was 100. It looks like 20 of them have already been disrupted. Do you see more of that happening with your task force? Or are you guys more focused? Like I had recently seen like 9 restaurants that were involved in this tunnel pushing thing. Um, uh, in Texas. I think it was like Houston or San Antonio or something. And so, where are you seeing right now things going down as far as breaking up the tunnel pushers?
I mean, I think it's kind of everywhere right now. I think there's a lot of survivor-led task force across the US. And I think that there's a lot of touristy spots that people don't even realize are happening. Like, for example, Texas. People go to Texas and they'll go to San Antonio and then they want to go to the Riverwalk, right? Well, that's like there's so many restaurants, there's so many tunnels underneath there. People don't even realize. And then they don't realize that these churches, right? And all of their property and everything have tunnels as well. If you go look on like a Google map, right, and look at any of these mega church pastors, you can spot where the tunnel starts in their house or in their where their property is, because they usually have like I don't know what it's called. It's like a breathing thing that goes, it's like underneath the ground and it comes up and it's like, I don't even know what
Oh,
it's
like a
called.
drain or like a
Kind of like a drain, yeah, where it's like you
or a
get air that
flute,
flows in.
like where air could come out.
Yes, yeah, like it's kind of like a filter that so you can breathe right underneath there. And there's so much underground. I don't think even people are ready to even realize what's under there, and that has to be blown up. Like it has to like go away. Like, and I'm not saying do any of that.
Right, right,
I'm
right.
saying like, the US Marshals and the police and different people are going and doing this to like fill in these holes that are underground. And that's what needs to happen. This is why you're seeing a lot of these churches that are all of a sudden catching on fire, right? Because they're
Oh,
either
that's
trying,
another thing I forgot about. We had a huge church here in Dallas that
right.
burned to the ground.
Yep. And that's part of hiding evidence and then trying to get rid of everything underneath. Because once that church is like stubble, right, then you've kind of gotten rid of what everything's underneath. And you see all of these like pastors falling, and you're like, oh, shoot, I might be next. And there's a lot of evidence here. And think about like, when I talk about evidence, there's DNA, there's like bodily fluid. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
things that are going to be in there that is going to be unexplained. And the only way you can get rid of it is burn it. And I'm not saying burning it down is going to really take care of all of it, because you can still get some of that stuff off of there. It just kind of depends on the situation and how the fire burned and if it even went underneath. Did they do anything underneath, or did they just do it on top? Because you can dig all that out and then there's still the tunnels that they didn't take care of. You still have all that evidence there. So
So crazy. And so to really get to the core of it though, like are you aware, like for instance, before Tony Evans stepped down, did you know that that was going to happen, or is that something like you just keep up with through the news or, social
I know
media?
some of them because our task force has gone in, right? So I know some of them, but I don't know every single one because there's no possible way,
Right, right, right.
and I can't go hunt them all. There's just no, I mean, I wish I could, but then I would never be a mom or a wife. So no, some, and usually I'm told before it's going to happen, but like it's right before. and then it hits the news. So it's not like I have all of this time that it's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen because I've been told and
Do
shown
you
different
think
things.
sorry, I thought you were done.
Oh, no, you're
Do
good.
you think all 100, and I'm not saying that's the exact number, but I'm just using it, of these people that you have named, do you believe they will all go down?
I believe they will. Yeah. And I think even if I think there's a certain uprising that's happening right now, and so if it's not taken care of on one end, it's going to be taken care of on the other. And I got to be careful because of what we're saying here, so people can interpret how they want that. But I think that the nasty things that have gone on has been enough in this world. I think people are really kind of opening up their eyes of what's going on. So I think either way, it's going to be taken care of. And there's certain people that won't be able to even walk down the street because people won't allow them to, there. I mean,
Right.
look at this happened
It's
with
kind of
Joel
happened to
Osteen.
Justin Trudeau, like, he's, like, pretty much screamed at
Yes.
everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
It's
Did you see it
crazy.
happen with Joel Osteen? That guy, he called him, I don't remember what he called him, but he was like, "Hey, Joel, come over here." And then he like recorded it and went viral. And I can't remember what name he's called. It was one of the nasty names, but it was like, man, if that's starting already, and
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau should not be able to walk down the street anyway.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a whole nother deal. But, and so the other thing that I was thinking about too, because I kinda keep Trina Piccarello in mind because she was the
Love
one
her.
that kind of shared with us, on Alive, that it truly is, a gift to give people the benefit of the doubt, but that doesn't mean you can't keep a side eye on them. Just kinda keeping an eye and making sure that they aren't acting really strange or doing strange things. How do you guys decide who to go after? Who, like, I don't know. Do you get an assignment, or do you decide where you go? Like, how does it
I
work? Or can you
mean,
even talk about it? I don't even know if you
that's
can or
that's
not.
a hard one because I can't, like, we run
Okay.
investigations, and there's like a whole team that does, like, tech things, and there's like different things. Sometimes you get um like someone will say, "Hey, this is going on." You have to like check into it. There are certain people that will reach out and say, "Hey," and then there are certain things that we already know, and what, like, these pastors, like, they're creatures of habit. So it's really like easy to catch them, because even if they think that they're changing something up, you can kind of catch them. It's the same way with these trafficker, like, it's the same way, right? So, and I can't really get into how we like go
Yeah,
after them and that kind of thing, because that would
right.
probably put us in danger. But I mean, we have, like, especially this month, right? There's a lot that happen. This is supposed to be a really holy month, right? October, and then they made it a really evil
Holy
month.
for the bad guys, for the tunnel pushers?
No, it's supposed to be holy for, like, it's supposed to be a really godly month. It's supposed to be a
Oh,
holy month, and that's where they turned it into this like demonic, like evil,
they gave it the
thing.
dark side, the copycats.
So yeah, so they start hunting, and doing things with, obviously, and so we have to, like, we step in and we know like what's happening and where their hunting grounds are. So we try to like put people there throughout the month so we can catch them, and protect these kids. It's, you just got to be on alert. Unfortunately, people like do weird things too, which is like a whole nother show, but it's like you'll post where your kids go to school and different things. Like, don't. You'll put on your car, "I have like 5 kids and a husband and 2 dogs," and it's like, stop that. Like, you're telling, and I know that it's cute, and that's just people like those moms that are very like artistic, and they like all of that stuff, but I'm like, "Man, you're putting a target on your back. Just stop."
That's good advice. That's very good advice. And so, as far as the churches go, are there certain ones that would make you the happiest if they went down? Even though I know we're not supposed to have any joy in watching the enemy, in pain.
I
I'm
mean,
working on it, God.
obviously, me too, but I still will be happy when someone will go down. But obviously, I want Mike Erie to go down. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, that one's a personal one.
Yeah, it's crazy because he's in Tennessee and he's literally like they've pushed the thing during the you know what in 2020, right? And so like you a church shouldn't be pushing these things. And he went into hiding for so long and he was at two mega churches in Orange County. Really, I know that Texas is starting and I think that Orange County is the next to go. Like I mean there's so many mega churches in Orange County and Orange County is small, right? It's not huge. Like Texas is huge, right? You know, you have Texas is like 5 states in one, you know, it's so big. But I'm really hoping that Orange County and then, you know, yeah, Mike Erie for sure. I'm liking seeing TD Jakes go down right now because I was called so many names. I was called a racist. I was called all of these things. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I was even told that a white girl can't be SA. Like, it's like, wait, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
Because frankly, those type nasty people don't care what your race or color, or they might care what your gender is, but they don't care about your race or color. It's
Yeah.
not about that for them. It's how they can take control over you. And I'm like, this is not something that should be a race thing at all.
I
You know?
definitely think it's a time to like, I want to get back to the Mike Gary thing, but I do think it's a time for like, I can't believe how many people have been SA'd and used in SRA. And
Yeah.
when you realize the amount of people, then you understand why there's so much chaos and hatred and trolling and confusion. And it's they're acting out in their healing. If they're trying to heal, you know, they should look at it like, oh, that just triggered me. I should look into why that triggered me rather than, you know, going and lashing out at somebody. And that's what I would really like to see because I feel like we can all be friends with anyone. You don't have to have them in your inner circle, but you can like, I don't know, be a fan for them to make it into heaven. And I want as many people as possible to make it into heaven. And it's going to be harder and harder if we're all fighting each other. And so I just feel like that's a huge piece. But going back to the Mike Erie thing, so he allegedly did some
Not
things
alleged. You can say allegedly. I can say because
there
I'm
you go.
firsthand
You can
testimony.
say, but do you see how I have to hold it different than you do?
Oh,
But
100%.
I also know that because I'm your friend and we talk on the phone, I also know that you reached out to the church in Tennessee. What happened?
Yeah, and I posted that. I actually reached out and I said, "Hey," and there's some other girls that this happened to when. So for people that don't, I mean, it was at Rock Harbor in Orange County, and they have a shark club. And so some of these girls that I am still in contact with, that also have testified. I said, "Listen, if you don't believe me, there's other girls that want to talk to you." Well, guess what? They did an internal investigation and their board said that there was no harm done. So let me ask you guys something. How can a board in Tennessee that has nothing to do with Rock Harbor or Rock Harbor Church do an investigation into nasty things that happened in a different state, in a different city, years prior? They didn't talk to any of the survivors, not one. They refused. And then they basically said, I had mental health issues, which I'm like, okay, I could come and sue you for that because one, I had my therapist do mental health exams on me because I was sick of people saying that. And frankly, I had a crazy ex-husband at the time. So I'm like, I know I don't have mental health issues, but you're sitting here saying these. When did you become a therapist? The only person that has mental health issues is someone that's doing nasty things to women, children, and some men. Like that's you. So to me, I'm like, this is the problem I have come into. People think that didn't reach out to these people in the beginning. I did, okay? And then they refused to respond, or they did the same thing that Mike Erie's church is doing. So I went and filed lawsuits under Jane Doe. I mean, and there are multiple women that have done that. But unfortunately, these pastors run Tennessee, they run Orange County, they run California, they run Texas. They have so much connection into these court systems and different things that it's like you can't find anything because they hide it or they've paid off people to delete it or whatever. I mean, it's like a crazy vicious cycle. So when you go back to Mike Erie, that's where it's like, you know what? I hope that whole church, because there's no one hurting that can go to that church. That church is a predatory ground for victims. And so when you're a victim, unfortunately, you go and find, it sounds crazy, but you attract predators because you don't know that you're still a victim. And so and that happened to me. And my therapist had to say to me, where are you accountable, where you're bringing these people into your life? And I'm like, oh, at first I got mad at her and I was like, oh, wait, now I see what you're talking about. So you have this church, it's called Journey Church in Tennessee, which is really comical because I talk about a church in Colorado called Journey, and there's no like coalition. Like, it's not like the one in Colorado. I mean, I absolutely like love. And then this one, I'm like, man, you guys should change your name because you're associated with this church in Tennessee. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's just really sad that a lot of people find it. And going back to the hurting, the people that are just like triggered, and it's because they just don't know that there's still some trauma in there that they have to go fix and find. And that's not easy to do. You have to keep yourself accountable. I think that's one thing that most survivors, and why there's so much fighting everywhere and different things, is because they're not accountable. This is why I love Carmen so much. And this is the people that I have become friends with that haven't been my friends for like, 10, 15 years. Every single one of them, I stay friends with them because they said, listen, I'm not really trusting this, or I don't know if I believe this, or can you help me understand? And they were honest. And I would talk with them because I'm like, well, let me have this conversation, because they respected me enough to say, hey, I'm kind of confused. Can you help me understand this? And respected me and didn't treat me like a victim. They treated me like an adult to become friends with and build a relationship with. And that's why Carmen and I have stayed friends. People are like, why are you guys, friends? I'm like, because she's respected me enough to say, hey, can you help me understand these certain things? Let me ask you questions. Never been disrespectful, never called me a name, never said, you're a liar, you're, whatever. Never. Always has asked me. And I think that that's how we should be. Even with people are questioning me, people are like, well, I want to see your receipts. Do you want to, even if you saw them, would you believe them? Or are you just trying, is it the gossip of it, the sensationalism of it? Like, are you just like, oh my gosh, I want to see this so I can go say she's not telling the truth and she's lying. Look what she, posted. Because I posted receipts of myself before, and it was, oh, this is altered. I'll never do it again, ever. Because I was like, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. That the fall of these churches is happening, and that's proof enough for me.
Yeah, it's the same way I feel about watching Jaguar Wright, and same thing with her. Like, I don't know if she's telling 100% of the truth, but I do know that the things that she was saying before are happening right now. And so there's something there. And
Yeah.
that's kind of, I think that that's the part that hurt me the most going through this process of, because I had never experienced anything like that in my life. Just watching these beautiful humans that had been so harmed in so many different ways, trying to, I don't even know what they were doing. I guess they were just like exuding their trauma, rather than trying to heal it. And I do think that one of the smartest things that you did was stick with having a therapist that was working through stuff, but also one that would call you out and say, you're still acting like a victim. Like, that's a very rare therapist. How many years did you go?
Gosh, my therapist, I was with her, let's see, like 7 years until she passed away. She was my therapist. So
Yeah.
I was with her for a very long time. And I mean, towards the end, I didn't really need to see her all the time. I mean, and I had moved to a different state, and I would call her. In fact, the last time when I found out she had passed away, I reached out to her because a friend wanted to see her. And I was like, hey, and then her daughter told me she had passed. And I was like, I thought her daughter was lying. I was like, no, that's not possible. So, I mean, she just was a good, and people people say, well, there's so many bad therapists and horrible therapists. I know there are, because I went through a bunch of them, but there are some really amazing ones too. You just have to find them and find what you connect with. This is why I love Trina so much, because she reminds me so much of my therapist. I like the quirky, just real therapist, but I also know that Trina is like quirky, but I do believe, and I've never seen her privately, but in my head, she probably is like that. I'm going to keep you accountable for your actions and what you've done. And that's not easy to do because
Mm-mm.
when you're a victim, you like to hang on to that victim, like you hold it like a badge of honor. And so then when you are being held accountable of like, why are you a victim? Do you like staying in this state? My therapist has said to me, I think I said this before in shows, she said, until you're uncomfortable in peace, you're never going to be comfortable in peace. And I would thought that was crazy. I didn't really understand what she meant until I started to find peace and I'd get uncomfortable and I wanted to cause chaos. And I'm like, no, let me just be uncomfortable in this peace. And now I value my peace. I value my peace. Like people, yeah, I post online, I do different things, but I also, that does not come into my world. Like my circle and my world is peaceful and calm. And that's what it is.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting too because I know for a fact that when you meditate, that's what starts bubbling up is the stuff, and so that's why a lot of people won't sit quiet.
yeah.
If they sit quiet, then those things come up and they don't really know what to do with it. It's an uncomfortable feeling, or it's not enough of a dopamine hit, like I've got to
Yeah.
go out and cause some drama, because when I write this mean comment about Madison in Carmen's chat, I feel really good about myself, like for that quick moment, and then they're banned. And then somebody was asking where to find information about you, and then somebody else wrote, I believe Madison is on Facebook. Are you?
Well, let's get no. I think I just got kicked off of Facebook. So I am on Instagram and Telegram, and I think I might need to open up my Telegram. But Facebook banned me, or they're doing a review right now for. I don't know. I had posted that I was coming on Carmen's show, and then I was like, "Hey, come watch us in 45 minutes," and then they deleted it and put me in Facebook jail for
We
180
hadn't
days.
even started yet, and they're already getting rid
That
of it.
right already. So on Instagram, and I also, my website is madisonmarquette.com. And eventually I am going to start a podcast. I was talking with a friend of mine that I go on his podcast. And so we're working on that right now to make it actually look professional, because I was just doing these lives and different things. And I'm like, let me just separate it. But that's coming. Just, and
That's
Google me at your
good.
own risk.
I'm glad you will be. I am I'm conflicted on, biblically it says not to take joy in the pain of an enemy. Um, but I really, when you will send me a text saying this person just stepped down or this just happened, there's a piece of me that I want to celebrate with you, because that I can't even imagine what it would be like to be vindicated on that level, to have people not believe you, or even people like me that give you space to be right, but I don't know. How could I possibly know? I wasn't in the nasty tunnel pushing section of my church.
Right. Well, that's what people don't understand. Like where I am, like, because there are emotions that come up for me. I had a decade of my life almost stolen. Yes, granted, I made a decision that altered the course of my life. I take accountability for that. But I also try to get help, right? And so to me, I'm like, there was innocence stolen there. There was a lot of things that were stolen. And I still deal with it. Like, I mean, the people that pretend to be my family are psychotic, right? And they stalk me like crazy. And I'm like, your obsession, stay bothered, stay triggered, because I'm not going anywhere. And you're only afraid I'm going to say your dirty little secrets of who you are, right? One is well, she's a traitor to our country because she's a bar attorney. So, you know what I mean? There's like, you want to say all of like these things. And so when these things happen, I'm like, man, I'm doing what God has called me to do. And it is vindication for me. I think that to me, I'm not going to feel bad about it because they stole so much from me, and all while they've been living this high life, right? I mean, they didn't offer me that much money to recant testimony. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care if you offered me all of the money in the world. No way am I going to recant my testimony. I hope you, that fear that you made me feel for almost a decade, I hope you feel it. And I hope you feel it tenfold, because I'm not the only one that has had that feeling, right? I've seen people that have lost their lives and seen people that have taken their lives because mentally they couldn't handle it. And I see people that follow me now, that they've gone through horrific things and they say, I've gone through this, and they're like, maybe not as much as you, but I'm like, nobody's trauma is bigger than anybody else's. It's just a different trauma with a different predator. I mean, that's it. It's just, there's no, you can't be like, oh, mine's better than yours, and that it's just different. And so for those people that have been harmed by these nasty, tunnel pushing, horrible humans, it's vindication, I
Yeah.
think,
No, and I guess too, if I were to see, like, let's say Robert Morris, who's basically disappeared,
Yeah.
let's say he came back out and he went public, he had a press conference, he confessed, and he gave back money to all the people that gave it in good faith, or at least tried. I'm sure a lot of it's spent. Um, and he never ever would be a pastor again. And he did his time in jail or wherever for the crimes that he committed. Um, then I probably wouldn't celebrate.
And I'm with you on that. If there was an accountability from them, but they don't, and they just run, right? They're cowards. They're the biggest coward on this planet. These pastors that are supposed to be preaching the name of God are the biggest cowards, and their wives are even more cowardice and just as nasty. And so, I mean,
I
listen,
think
that
more
day happened.
nasty. I think it's
I
more nasty to have a feminine energy, to understand what that place is in a church and the trust that that woman had. That's why whenever a guy comes out to say, "Oh no, I didn't do it," they always have their wives at that
Yeah.
conference. She's sitting right there. And to me, that's just like the getaway car.
That's exactly it. It's their covering, right? The wife. Oh, the wife couldn't have known. No, the wife always knows. I'm sorry. Like, you're in bed literally with them. Don't tell me you don't know, because women are just, God made us this way. There's an intuition in us, and you have that intuition. So I don't believe that the wives don't know. And for the most part, majority of the wives I've seen there. And I think some of the wives that know, like, I think Mike Erie's wife knows. I don't think she's a predator, but I think she knows. I think that she likes the lifestyle and different things that she gets. And I think that, but doesn't that make you just as guilty if you know and you're not doing anything about it? And I could be wrong. I don't know that for a fact. That just, she's never done anything to me.
Right.
So,
Right. And I use the word crime not in a legal sense, because to me,
sure.
if a man has sex with a woman under false pretense and she thinks that you're in love with her, and then you don't call her the next day, or ever talk to her again, to me, you stole from her. That's a crime.
Sure.
And so when I say that, I want to clarify, because I'm not saying that somebody is a criminal. And also, somebody's in here being snarky, and I am going to get rid of you. But they said,
Is that
were
the
there
one that told me I
crimes?
gained weight?
No, I already got rid of that one.
I was pregnant, you dummy.
Um, uh, were there crimes, or was it a one-time thing that happened 30 years ago? It disgusts me that somebody would ask that, and the reason is, if he confessed, which he did, nobody's saying he caught it, and he stood up there on the frickin' pedestal for I don't know how long, preaching the word, and every year discussing that he had some bad thing that happened. Yes, he is a criminal in my mind. And goodbye, nourished number
Okay,
one.
wait, can I just comment on that real quick before you
You
get
can
rid of them?
comment, but I'm going to ban them. Oh, you
Why?
want them to hear?
I want you to hear this. Why does it matter 30 years ago if that was, do you think that someone like that just does that and then stops? No, because of people like you, he's gotten away with it for 30 years. So congratulations for being a nasty protector, because I can't say
Okay,
the
well,
other
so
one.
now the person's saying they didn't mean it like that. Well, you
Well,
got saved just in time.
Yeah, well, that's like, listen, I get it, like, but that question,
Be
I'm
careful
gonna
what
say
you
this.
type in here,
Let's
guys. Be really careful. Like, I'm trying to be careful with my words, and I'm
sure.
and telling
Same.
you it isn't worth it to cause problems. It isn't. And yes, I think somebody that poses as a pastor who is doing absolutely abhorrent things, not even normal, gambling or, cheating on his wife. That's like normal human stuff. I'm talking about abnormal, tunnel pushing, blood reeked things,
Well,
bodily
and that's
fluids. That's what you
that's
said.
a trigger. And I want the person, and I get that this person didn't mean it like that, but let me ask you, and I'm saying this in love, okay? It happened 30 years ago to someone that came out because she had the courage to come out now. Do you know what she's endured for these last 30 years? She's had to see her attacker on a stage where people worship, okay? And I don't say that word lightly. They worship him. He has a cult following and they worship him. Being successful, making millions of dollars, having access to other children. That this woman had to endure that. When I come out and talk about it, I have to endure watching some of my attackers be online and be worshiped and then be called names and different things. So when you're talking, I get that some, like, it's like, oh, you hear, mind control is when you hear things repetitive over and over. That 30-year question, and I don't blame this person, but I think you've heard that because I've seen that question 20 million times, and it's because you see it over, right? And it's like, wait, if you see that question over and over again, take a step back and say, why are they wanting me to ask this question? There's something wrong with this question that I'm asking. And I don't say that like lightly, right? So imagine a 12-year-old who's in the height of hormones and everything else gets attacked, and then everyone hit it, and she, like, maybe just found her healing, and this is why she had the courage to come forward. Thank God she did, because none of you listened to me, but thank God you listened to her, and now he cannot be around in this church to harm any of these children that were going to that church. So, you don't know what she's endured for the past 30 years of watching her attacker be worshiped by a bunch of crazy people.
I already know what it feels like on a business level to have somebody steal your ideas, your your
Yeah.
credit, your story, and go public with it. And I can't even stand it. I can't even stand it. I had to really do some work on forgiveness. And then I was like, okay, but I mean, literally cannot wrap my head around what it would feel like to have that and to have it done to you as a child when you don't even have any of the emotional and mental power to sort through or categorize or even begin to heal. There are some kids that are absolutely amazing at healing themselves.
Yes.
They're just natural, amazing, high vibing people, but it's very difficult. And then two, somebody else had mentioned, what about the ones who get amnesia after years and years? They fracture off and then they have all of a sudden out of nowhere the memories start coming back in. I mean, there's so many reasons, and people who don't understand really shouldn't comment. If you don't understand how something works, you should read more and listen more and then comment or ask questions, because it's horrifying. One of the things that I think you take a beating for is your choice to do porn. And I would like to ask you a question publicly. Do
Sure.
you personally know anyone anyone in that industry that you worked with, that you were around, that you know of, that wasn't harmed as a child or traumatized as a child,
I
sexually?
don't know. I don't know anyone, and I do know a lot of girls in the industry, and some are still in it. And people can get mad at me for that or whatever. But if they ever wanted out, I would help them tenfold. The problem is if they're making money, they're making so much money, right? They can't get out. But every one of that I've talked to, they have all had some type of childhood trauma that makes that in there in the porn industry 9 times out of 10. And frankly, I would probably say 9.5, like out of 10 because they have had some type of trauma, and you talk to them. And going to what someone had said about the blacking out, you were saying the blacking out, like you do black all of that out. So you're going and making a choice to do porn, and you don't even maybe realize why you're making that choice. You're like,
Such a
I
great
have
point.
years of blacked out memories, and I have worked with trauma therapists. It is like gone. And frankly, there's some other things that we're like trying to like see. But I mean, when I made that choice, I mean, I had childhood trauma, right? Childhood sexual trauma. And so I ended up and I made that choice. But I also knew something in me that something was wrong. That's why I tried to get out. And these girls, I mean, people talk about porn stars and they're like, well, you can't believe them. The misconception is that porn stars are liars. Frankly, porn stars are probably the most truthful people that you come across. One, because they're out there, right? And they're just going to tell you how it is. They're not, no matter what the situation is. What are they lying about? They're out there doing it. Do they lie about maybe doing porn? Maybe, but maybe they don't want you to know that. Maybe they're trying to, like, a lot of girls got in it too. I mean, I know one that's trying to, like, she got into it and she's trying to be a psychologist, and like that follows her around. But she's like such a beautiful human being that it's like, why are we judging her because she made this choice? Like, she had childhood trauma. And it's like, maybe stop attacking the women in porn and start looking at the porn industry in its entirety. Why is it at a click of a button? I can get kicked off of Facebook for posting about a podcast that I'm coming on, but they can't take off the porn and Pornhub and different things. Think about that. The problem isn't with the women that are getting into porn or the men, right? Because there's men that are abused. The problem is with the porn industry in its entirety. That is what the problem is. And guess what? Just like I said earlier, victims go find predators. The biggest predator there is the porn industry, and the producers and the Derek Hay and the Kevins back in, the 2000s, of when they're running the biggest, tunnel hub.
Tunnel pushers.
Yeah, tunnel pushers.
I like that you coined a new thing that I can say freely on any platform, and nobody will crush me for it.
Yeah.
So the next thing that I wanted to ask you about is, or just wanted to kind of feel you out as far as, finish this sentence for me. I told you.
So
But
I told you so.
give us a list of a few so
I
that.
told you that the mega church pastors were gonna fall. I told you that these churches were going to fall. I told you so about what's happening with the bar attorneys that is going on. I told you with the United States government of what's going on. I mean, there's like, knowledge is such power, and I think people don't realize that. Like, I may tell you something, but go research, like go research it, go pray about it. But I mean, to me, the biggest thing is with these pastors, because that's what I've gotten this so much hate on. And that's the biggest I told you so, because it's like, man, it's sometimes you do just want to be like, F off and flip them off and just go on your way and drink your wine.
Right.
But I don't want to be hateful, right? Because again, they're going through their own hurting thing. But that's it. That's the biggest I told you so, was these churches. And I think a lot more is to come. I think people are not even prepared for it. I think they're seeing it and they're not being prepared for it. What I really wish is that the people would start demanding, the mainstream media, and demanding that like these pastors get, pushed, like if they're still preaching, or they say they step down and then they're up on stage, like there should be like protest and things. I mean, there was these guys that just went to Ed Young's church and got arrested because they asked for financial transparency from Ed Young, and they got arrested. That should tell you guys all you need to know, is that this is a good old boys club that is protecting these pastors. There was, I think Carmen, you might have sent it to me, or someone sent it to me, when Malcolm X got unalived, who brought him out to the forefront? It was a preacher. The preachers are the ones that are running this evil and running this country. And it's time for an awakening. It's time for a revival, and it's time for Babylon to fall. And that is these churches. And I told you
Well,
so.
okay, so I've already had you for an hour, and I know you have a life other than me, but do you have a little bit more time?
Sure. Yeah, I have a little bit more time.
Okay, because this is what I think is really important. How do you know? So for me, I agree with you 100%. Mega churches, auto delete. Like just put them on auto delete. For me, I'm only speaking for me. And the reason is, look at Robert Morris, for example. $250 million, $250 million a year. Um, Literally think of how he could do so much good. And even if you only, as a church, are required only to do well in that one little town, imagine how they could, each church could really transform a town, put farms in them, do whatever. And so that for me is an auto delete. What are the things that if you're going into a church as somebody who's been through the tunnel pushing, um, what would you tell people that they could actually look for? And when you were talking about that, I thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe the fact that they have a lot of police presence, but I don't know. They might say they need to be protected.
Why? Let me ask you. Why does the pastor need to be protected? When did he become the president? So he has the Secret Service and everything else, and then they're trying to say. And then, let me ask you, how much crime is happening at a church that you need so much police presence? I mean, you're just like showing. And why, if your church is so big that you need a police presence, maybe your church is a little too big
That's what I
because
would
you
say.
can't control a crowd and everything else. And frankly, why did Texas, out of all churches, need a police presence? Texas is a constitutional carry state. Why?
Well, you're not
You
allowed to carry them in churches or malls or
But
whatever.
that's actually, they can't stop you.
I can see the argument, but I do believe that it is commensurate with the amount of money. So they
Yeah.
begin making more money, they've got more assets, they're worth more, they could be kidnapped, like all kinds of things. But to me, it really goes against it. Are there ways to tell that the church has underground stuff?
I mean, I think the police presence, I also think that if you were to go wander around, let's say TD Jake's church, right? And you were to go wander around and they're not going to let you go into certain areas. Why is that? Right? Why are they stopping you from certain areas? Like, why can't you go into those areas? There's that, right? There's also like, it's like herding cattle. If they're herding the congregation into one spot, okay, and then you're going to go what fellowship or whatever the heck you want to call it after, and they're herding you out to one spot. There's a reason for that. There's secrets that they don't want to. Perry Stone is a perfect example of this. I have posted, okay, what's hidden in Perry Stone's walls of his church and his I don't think it's called a church. It's where he does his weird ministry stuff. But all of the gold and everything he has hidden in these walls and these churches. Of course, they want to protect that because that, just like you said, that's a lot of money that people are going to go after. So they have like gold and different things hidden. I mean, come on, you think Joel Osteen just had all of this money hidden in walls just for no reason? No. I mean, that's where I'm saying their playbook for each and every one of them is the same. So I think that, and why can't you talk to a pastor? I'm sorry, but if your pastor is so too important to talk to you, then that means that he thinks he has dominion over you, and no man should have dominion over any other man or woman. And so why are you letting this pastor have dominion over you? Why are you such a peasant and he's such a god that you can't have a conversation with him? Why does he have 5 or 6 bodyguards? Listen, if the people want to, like traffickers and kidnappers and whatever, if they want to do that, they're going to do that. And they're not going to do it at a church where it's like heightened so many people. They're going to go do it in other places and not at this church of a like prominent figure. And frankly, someone like these pastors would just pay off anybody that like tried to kidnap them. How much you want? Okay, I'll give it to you. Leave me alone. You know? So I think, oh, what else? I mean, why are the churches closed all week? That's I think another big sign is it's closed all week. What's going on from Monday through Saturday and only open on Sunday. And I know some churches have
That's
schools
true,
with
because the
different
old
things.
time churches used to be open and people could go in there and pray and light a candle or, whatever. It depends on if you're Catholic or not, but that's what I
Yeah.
grew up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't even go into them. I mean, when there was the hurricane and Joel Osteen didn't open up his church, you know why he didn't open up his church? Because there are tunnels and different nasty things going on in his church. You can't open up your church to hurting people that might be wandering around the church until this hurricane is over, because they might stumble upon your sins that are in there. If they're not helping the community, I think that's another big thing too. I mean, they're just, why are you have all of this community? I guarantee you around Ed Young's church, TD Jakes, Joel Osteen, Robert Morris, all of these churches, right? I guarantee you they're within 10 blocks close to that church. There are hundreds of hurting people that need food. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their mortgage. Their car is broken down. Like, their kids need clothes, sports things. But do they know that? No, because they're hurting themselves off with the police who protect them to make sure that they're just not harmed. Okay. So I've preached to the peasants now. So now I'm going to go home and I'm going to have my, $100 meal, $200 meal, while the rest of you peasants that have thrown your money at me go and suffer.
Yeah.
That sounds harsh, but
And so what kind of church do you think people should go to? And I know this is an opinion, but I think it's important for people to start talking about this. We obviously have a failed template. And the way that Amanda Bays and Rowley were teaching on my channel is that if you see that there's a pyramid, then there's a problem.
yeah.
And I love that, because there's a guy at the top and then everyone has to do what that guy says, or they lose their jobs and they've signed NDAs. And, there's all kinds of, even that would be that's another one. If you volunteer and you have to sign a non-disclosure, I mean,
Yes,
that's
that's
really
huge.
nasty. They should not be censoring a
That's
volunteer from sharing their experience at that church. And that's just, volunteers, people that work there, whatever. But what kind of church do you think is the best kind of church?
that's a hard one. I mean, here's the thing. I am
You
so
get so
against
hurt by them, you're like, I can't stand them.
I believe the word church, right? What is church? Okay. What is church even defined in the Bible? The Bible doesn't talk about church. It talks about where two or more are gathered, right?
The
So
assembly.
you and I are here so we can have church. When you're going to a church or you have a fellowship with people or people around, you want accountability. So church can be anywhere. Like, I think you can go outside and you can have people, like-minded people, right? And that can grow, right? That can grow. But if it starts to get too big, maybe there's lack of accountability, so it needs to break off. We need to get back to like the home churches and the home, like, we're in your community.
That's what I do.
Yeah, in your community, like, what's going on? Is someone need help? Is someone hurting that's around me? And can I help them? Can I give them food? Or, like, maybe you're really hurting. You know what I mean? Like, how come we don't know who the old people are on around us, right? Like, there might be some really lonely, like, elderly people that have lost loved ones recently, a spouse or whatever. Like, go and sit and talk with them and have conversations. When you go to these like mega churches, do you even really know anyone? I mean, unless you go with the people that are your friends already. And so why do you need to go? You can stay together. And I do not think that there needs to be a head, right? I think that there needs to be an equal like thing with each person. Like, hey, okay, we're going to talk about this. Each person talks about something. Okay, how are you doing? Are you struggling? Can I pray for you? What are you needing? Like, that to me is where this is where we also break the chains of Babylon too, right? Of coming together, and there's the at-home churches or outside. I mean, listen, God created this world around us and we're literally letting it pass us by going into these congregational churches on a Sunday. That's not even the true Sabbath every Sunday. So you're going and looking at a man standing over you when you could literally be sitting under a tree, at a lake, at wherever, and
And
gathering.
millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions going to these guys and their private jets and all that good stuff. And I have no problem with a pastor making lots of money on their books or whatever, but I definitely have a problem with them doing rituals that I don't know about, or having such a large alligator to feed that they're more worried about catering to the wealthy people in the church than they are to everyone in the church. And so I do think small is best. I think it gets to a point where it's too many, and I even think it's a small amount. I think 50 to 150 people tops. And to get more involved in community, and to remember that every single person is struggling. There are so many people that have called me this week who are strong people that are feeling the weight all of a sudden out of nowhere. And I'm like, you've just got to bust through, because you're some of the strongest people I know. And if you're having a hard time, imagine what some of the other people are going through. So just have more compassion, call out less people, and call out more actions. It's not the person, it's the action that they're doing. It's the words that they're saying. And to speak ill over anybody, including your
Yeah.
own children, we have got to get better at really understanding how powerful the word is. And so somebody here said 20 people is a big church, in my opinion. That's my kind of guy.
But that's the church that I went to in Colorado. The reason that I got over thinking that every pastor was bad was because, hopefully he doesn't get mad at me saying this, but Corey, the pastor there, Corey Bragg, I had my son, he was really little, and I refused to put him in children's church. And he opened up his door with him and his wife and broke bread with me and just loved me where I was at. And he knew who referred me, because who referred me over was Craig Gross, the porn pastor. So I'm sure they already knew somewhat about me.
Why is he called the porn pastor?
Because he used to go into porn shows. His church was called Triple X Church, and he used to go into porn shows and say Jesus loves porn stars. So him and his wife would go into all these porn shows, and if girls wanted to get out, Craig Gross actually wrote the foreword for my book. And he also did, it's a software for people that are addicted to porn. And so it gets installed on all your technology, and if you watch it, it goes to your accountability partner. So he built this software for it. So that's when I was in this church, like, there was no judgment. And it was like, okay, there's a reason why you don't want your kid in children's church. I'm going to let you be out here. And it was like a small church. It got bigger. And listen, I still love them because they've done so much for me. But I had a hard time going once it got bigger, because I'm like, I'm getting this anxiety, not because of them, because I do trust the pastors and don't think that they're traffickers at all. But it just grew where I'm like, I don't want to be in this church with like, if I'm going to go, usually I'll go and be like, hey, when I go back to Colorado, Corey, let me see you and have my kids, see them, and that's it. But yeah, I think the smaller churches is what it should be. And even 20 people, I mean, there's so much drama with people,
Right? That's why I used to always call all of our businesses adult daycare.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work to work with people's personalities. And there's so many gifts that people have, but with gifts also there's deficits, and everybody, if they're not working to improve, you've got a lot to do. Oh shoot, I lost my question. Oh, it had something to do with the churches, but I lost it. Thank you so much for hanging in there. I know you're only a part of the way through, but I am happy for you, because I know all that you've been through, and all of the horrible words that have been spoken over you, and all of the just evil that people dump on somebody that has a history, which I think is wrong. And I think when somebody comes out and publicly admits, I think it's time to start loving on them. And we are all so vulnerable right now. We're being pressed in every way. And I just I know what it was. I wanted to tell people that the best way to feel better is to go help someone else. I know that
Yeah.
sounds so weird, but when you start getting really low, go out. I don't care who it is, just smile at them. Go do something for a little kid, help a mother, help an elderly person like Madison was saying. You will absolutely feel better. It does come back and you'll start getting that spirit back.
Yeah.
And also try to catch it as soon as you can because it can get dark. People will call and they really need help getting pulled out. So, just be nice, everybody.
Seriously. And you don't know. I mean, some of these porn stars, I mean, there's a lot, I think people don't even realize there's a lot of unaliving themselves and people don't follow it because they're porn stars, but I do follow it. And I think that kindness goes such a long way. And please, for this love of all that is holy, don't do it with a camera in your hand to show the world that you're so kind. If you're going to be kind, do it in secret, right? Because the world doesn't need to know. And people that are hurting, people go and they put these homeless on like line. I have a problem with that. You're getting popular and rich off of showing these homeless. They're in their
Virtue
darkest days.
signaling.
Yeah, it really is. And so do it night. Like, listen, if there weren't people in my life that really like helped me along the way, because I write about it in my book, I mean, there's no way I would be where I'm at now. And this is why I love people like Carmen, and I have people that I allow to stay in my life because they're such good humans, and that they teach me things as I go. And there's that accountability with people when you are friends with people, and there's just a goodness there. And my kids actually, my oldest especially, really loves Carmen, and he's never been wrong about a bad person in his life. And so he trusts
Yay.
her.
I would say his name, but I don't want to get in trouble.
No, don't, please. God.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
So, anywhere people can find you other than Facebook that you just got kicked off of today?
So you can find me on Telegram. It's Madison Marquette Her News, because there's like 3 hate groups on there. So I mean, if you want to go join the hate ones, go ahead. But and then my website, madisonmarquette.com, and then I'm also on Instagram. So just make sure you spell my name right. But
Yeah, with a Y.
yeah.
And then somebody asked here how they could support your work.
We do collect donations, which is where a lot of these hate things come from, of like, but listen, when you're housing children that have been harmed and running the investigations, it's a lot of money to do it. It's like, I don't even know how we've stayed afloat this long, but God's always provided. So you can go on to my Telegram. I will post it usually on there. Facebook doesn't let me post as much of this stuff. And then Instagram's obviously a little bit different because it's videos. So you can go there or you can go to my website. I haven't redone my website to put it up there yet, but I say help the kids. I don't need anything at all. I mean, I'm taken care of, and God's provided for me and my kids and my husband. So we're good on that. So
Okay, because I mean, if you did, then you'd have to hire some people to arrest people to ask you where your money is.
seriously, I mean, thankfully, that goes to other people and I don't have to deal with it. I just want to take I have my bulletproof vest because I didn't know if I would need it today right here. Might have needed to put it on during this.
I won't mess with
And
you.
I just want to go fight the bad guys and then come home and like enjoy my family. So I'm one of those people. I don't know. I know that there's a lot out there, but I actually enjoy my kids and like homeschooling them and spending time. And there's people who are like, will drop their kids up at 6 in the morning and then pick them up at 6:30. I think that's so mean. I like enjoy my kids. So I'll go fight the
Same.
war and then come back.
I
So
miss them, and it goes fast, so you better enjoy it while you can. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for being here
thank
one more
you.
time. You can say it out loud.
Told you so.
That really does feel good. It give me chills. And they say it's ugly to say that, so we're just being ugly for a moment, but, it is kinda nice seeing evil, get put down a notch, so
Yeah.
bye, everybody. Have a
Bye.
wonderful, wonderful week. Actually, I'm gonna be back on Friday with, like, 2 Navy SEALs. I can't wait to share
If you're
their,
bringing Michael
they're
Jaco on,
trying
I'm not friends with you anymore.
Bye.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that.
No, you're
I'll
good.
go now.
Bye, everybody. All right. I think we're done. Oh, wait. No, it didn't hit end.